This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Aaron Maté.
Homicide. That's what a medical examiner ruled in the death of Eric Garner. On July 17th, police in Staten Island placed Garner, an African-American father of 6, in a chokehold after they confronted him for selling single cigarettes known as Lucy's. Graphic video of the incident shows an officer pulling Garner to the ground by the neck and then holding his head against the pavement. He repeatedly says he cannot breathe.
Put your hand behind your back. I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
Once again, police beating up on people.
Back up.
Right here.
Back up and get on that step.
Okay.
Eric Garner's family and supporters have called for criminal charges against the officer in a federal civil rights investigation. Chokeholds like the one that killed Eric Garner have been banned under the NYPD's excessive force guidelines for more than 2 decades. But today, New York City's Civilian Complaint Review Board will meet to address hundreds of chokehold complaints against officers in recent years.
Well, just 1 day after Garner's death was ruled a homicide, the man who filmed his death was arrested on weapons charges. Ramsey Orta says he's been harassed by police since his video emerged. All of this has raised the question of what right citizens have to film police officers on the job to ensure accountability.
For more, we're joined by 2 mothers whose sons were killed by the New York Police Department. Iris Baez's son, Anthony Baez, died December 21st, 1994, after an officer placed him in a chokehold. The officer was acquitted of criminally negligent homicide, but later convicted on federal civil rights charges and sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. Joining us from Washington, D.C., Kariadou Diallo. Her son, Amadou Diallo, was killed February 4th, 1999, when police fired 41 bullets at him, striking him 19 times. As he stood outside his apartment reaching for his wallet for his keys, the officers were acquitted of murder charges. Both Diallo and Baez have been supporting Eric Garner's family since his death. We're also joined by Norman Siegel, director of the New York Civil Liberties Union for 15 years now in private practice. He's representing Deborah Goodman, a retired legal secretary who filed a lawsuit against the city of New York after she was arrested for filming as police officers watched emergency medical technicians speak with a woman in a wheelchair. We welcome you all to Democracy Now! Norman Siegel, I want to start with you because it is this story of the video. I mean, this weekend the news comes out of the ruling of homicide. You know, Eric Garner, Staten Island man, standing in front of a store when the police move in on him. They had a very different story in their report. They said that they never mentioned chokehold. They said he was in no distress. But this video shows something very different. This young man, Ramsey Orta, just stood there filming and shows the entire encounter, and this is what has led to an outcry across this country. But he, after the homicide ruling, is then arrested. Talk about the significance of this, of being able to see what took place.
Oh, it's crucial. Without the video, the Eric Garner story would be totally different. We've seen it over and over again, the police version and the people's version. And the beauty of the video is that it speaks to the truth. And it becomes difficult for the people in power, especially law enforcement, to spin the story. And therefore, I encourage and urge people all across this country, take out your smartphone, and when you see police that you believe are violating someone's civil rights, record it. And then the story will be different, and then maybe we can get accountability finally over law enforcement.
Well, Deborah, you did this. You filmed police last year, and you were arrested. Can you tell us your story?
Yes, I was coming out of the subway, and I crossed the street, and I noticed a woman who appeared homeless in a wheelchair talking to a couple of EMT guys.
You're a legal secretary?
I was a legal secretary. I'm retired now. And so I noticed this woman talking to 2 EMTs, and I walked a little bit further, and I saw 3 police standing by a police van. So I walked a little bit further, about 10 feet past them, and I just turned around and began to film what was going on. And as I was filming, as I was attempting to film, an officer approached me, and he held his smartphone up as if he was going to film me. And I tried to explain to him that he didn't have that right because he was a police officer on duty, and I had the right. And then we had some words, and he asked me for some ID, and I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong, so I refused. And he told me I was under arrest, grabbed my wrist, put handcuffs on me, threw me in the van like a piece of meat, a police van, and I was detained for approximately 25 hours, including going to central booking and other places in shackles and handcuffs behind my back. And because I have had a lot of tissue removed due to breast cancer surgery, having the handcuffs behind my back caused terrible pain. And I mentioned this several times, and nothing was done about it. And then, you know, approximately 25 hours later, I was arraigned, and I had to appear at criminal court 5 separate times, at which times I was offered the same thing, and I didn't want to plead or take any deal. And so finally, after 5 visits to criminal court, the charges were dismissed.
How many states, and how many states is it actually illegal to film the police, Norman Siegel?
Well, it's really confusing. We have in the federal system trial courts, Court of Appeals, and the U.S. Supreme Court. The First Circuit, which is basically the Northeast, the Seventh Circuit, which is Midwest, and the 11th Circuit, which is the Southeast, Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. Those courts have said there is a constitutional right to do what Deborah did. The Third Circuit, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Fourth Circuit, Virginia, North Carolina, that area, they say no. So Deborah's case that we filed...
So states are saying, and states also in legislation are saying it is not legal in the police unless the police consent.
Well, a lot of the states haven't addressed the issue. In the absence of law saying you have a right, there's usually not a right. In New York, for example, our Second Circuit has not addressed this issue, and therefore Deborah's case could be very important and maybe historic, because maybe it winds up eventually in the U.S. Supreme Court, because there's the division between the circuits, and then usually the U.S. Supreme Court gets this. People say to me, oh, but the Supreme Court is conservative. I think everyone, liberals and conservatives, should support the right of people to record the police when they're interacting with people, providing that they don't interfere with the police doing their job.
I want to turn to the 2 mothers of victims of police violence in New York. Iris Baez, your son Anthony, it was December 21st, 1994. Describe what happened to Anthony in the Bronx. You were at your house?
No, I was in Florida. My husband was in the house. And that night they were going to go to Florida. So they had all the suitcases in the front of the house. And they found a football. So the 4 brothers decided to play with, a little touch
Your
game
4 kids.
For the 4 boys. And they went downstairs and they started playing. And then one of them threw the ball over David and hit the patrol car in the butt.
A patrol car was parked along your property.
Yes, they always park there. They hang out there. They do their stuff there, and they do their stuff there. And the football hit the patrol car in the bottom. Henry said it ricocheted from the floor and hit the patrol car. Mind you that Lavodi at the time...
Lavodi is the New York City police officer, Francis
that committed the murder. He was being monitored by his sergeant. He's supposed to be driving the sergeant around because he should not have any contact with anybody in that neighborhood.
Because?
Because he was abusive. And because he was a PBA delegate to become a higher up in the PBA.
In the union.
So he was very protective. And when the ball hit the patrol car, Lavodi got out, and he told him to get away from the block. And then he said, but we live here. This is the only house in the block. So then they moved up and kept on throwing the ball. So he went in the car, back in the car, but then he got out again. And he told him, get out, to get out. And then he put David in the patrol car. He handcuffed David and put him in the patrol car.
Your younger son.
My 16-year-old at the time. Then Anthony said, but what we're doing? We're not doing nothing. We're not bothering nobody. Then there was a black Jeep that my other son had, and he pushed him against the Jeep, and then when his body ricocheted back, that's where he put the chokehold on him. And then they were screaming, and then they were calling my husband, so my husband came down in underwears. He came down, and then my husband said, why are you doing this? He's a sick man. You're hurting him. He got asthma. So
your son Anthony has asthma.
My son Anthony had asthma when he was younger, but he outgrew it. So my husband was telling him to stop, and then he said, so if he has asthma, what the F is he doing playing football? And then it is ironic. And then so he kept on, and then when Anthony fell to the floor, at that time there was another patrol car coming, and it stopped. And in that patrol car that came last was Daisy Boria, the policewoman that said that nothing went down the way they were saying it went down. Because don't forget, the police got 48 hours to fix the story, make it happen the way they want.
Before they have to testify.
Before they testify.
This police officer, this female police officer, said what the police were saying was not true.
Yes.
That your son, Anthony, died in this chokehold.
Yes. She said that Lavodi choked him, and then there was no CPR. There was no ambulance call. They dragged his body into the car like an animal and threw him in the backseat of the car. Mind you, my husband was saying he's a sick man. He has asthma. Nobody gave him CPR at the time.
Kadiadu,